Father Zeus wills it that we suffer today. But take away this darkness, this mist covering the Greek eyes. Destroy us if you must, Father Zeus, but destroy us in the light.
Hello, and welcome to The Detour. The voice you just heard is Paul Susi's. Paul was sharing a passage from Homer's The Iliad. Because Paul does so many things in the world, it's difficult to sum up who he is or what he does. It is accurate to say, in familiar bio blurb form, that Paul is a theater artist, a social services professional, an educator, and a writer. But Paul is so much more than any blurb could say. He's a person who's trying to live in the world and be fully open to its suffering and darkness, as well as to the beauty that it holds. He's trying to reckon clearly with our past and to move toward a more gentle, patient, and just future. He's also trying to connect and to trust the power of connection. And in everything he does, he is working to bring more light. Here at Oregon Humanities, we feel lucky to have worked with Paul on a number of projects over the years, including community conversations about housing and belonging, and magazine essays about Qigong and Lone Fir Cemetery, and helping people in difficult straits recover legal identification materials. Paul manages a program at Street Roots, and his first book, Character Work, is due out in November, and he is performing in The Winter's Tale at Artist Repertory Theater in Portland. We talked with Paul at our downtown Portland office on a rainy morning in October 2025. Here's Paul now.
My understanding of life doesn't work without all of the dimensions engaged. It doesn't feel good to me to just be a social services professional. It's not healthy for me to just be an actor. These are things that are they're endeavors that require skill and professionalism and care and training and all the things. But they don't exist in a vacuum. And it's not healthy or sustainable to just be a shelter manager and your entire life is dominated by those concerns and those perspectives, those needs, staffing needs, scheduling needs, supply needs, resolving disputes and altercations, determining disciplinary actions, outcomes, all of that, budget, all that wonderful stuff. I've found that if I was just, for example, a social services professional, quote unquote, my emotional well-being becomes incredibly stunted and stale and reactionary. And I'm a deeply unpleasant person. And when I'm just doing theater, I can't make rent. I don't have health care. I have no sustainable future. And I'm also insulated from the realities that we actually coexist with at all times. But by doing all of the things, or by making good faith efforts to be engaged in all of those dimensions, I am able to be a whole human being in this moment in time, which is sobering to think in those terms. But practically, that's what, I'm rehearsing A Winter's Tale right now, a Shakespeare play about an unjust tyrant who condemns his wife for supposed adultery and experiences in the middle of the play a moment of recognition and complete remorse. Mm-hmm. And he's destroyed by this and embraces that immolation, that self-destruction of all of his assumptions and his tyranny. Spoiler alert for people who haven't seen Winter's Tale. And that is how I am able to live with the day-to-day tragedies and frustrations and horrors of our political moment and our social moment. And my work at Street Roots, which I love, but is really, really hard and really complex. And it's really hard to maintain a through line of presence and consciousness and emotional truth without also practicing emotional truth by rehearsing it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you just talked about maintaining a through line of presence and consciousness. You're so present both to suffering
Mhm.
and to creativity and your own emotional well-being. And so I want to ask, like, as a kid,
Mm.
like, were you pretty intensely present as a kid? Like when you look back, how do you see whatever kind of kid you were becoming the uniquely present adult that you are?
Uh, well, in all sincerity, I do credit my 7 years as an altar boy at St. Mary's Cathedral
Mhm.
on Northwest 17th and Davis. Um, Father Joe Jacob Berger was the pastor there. This is the late 80s, early 90s, and Portland was very different. And Catholicism in America felt very different at that time. And they were moderate, quiet,
Mhm.
kind, intelligent, really gentle, really caring priests at that cathedral. And they were understaffed. And it was like, if you've seen the movie Sister Act, it felt very much like Sister Act. Like the cathedral was crumbling and the congregation was dwindling and aging. And it felt like there were needles everywhere. And there was a lot of poverty and drug use and intoxication. And I remember some of the episodes of Cops were filmed like on Burnside, right outside of the cathedral, um, and those priests were so kind and positive and demonstrated that you didn't have to shout, you didn't have to be publicly passionate about your faith in order to practice your faith, and so that was really really powerful for me. And then, of course, my mom was very sick when I was 13. She had a stroke, and my parents split up. And so I was taking care of my mom from a very young age. And that quickly taught me that adulting is just a Ponzi scheme. Like, grown-ups don't have all the answers. They just pretend that they do. We've been faking it until we make it since 1776, and we've never made it. We've just been faking it. So that lesson was really important for me to internalize and has led to who I am now.
Did you think about, or do you think about priesthood as a form of doing that kind of work?
Briefly, but even then, and this is my own politics, but even then, the logic of, pro-life rhetoric did not square with the realities that I was experiencing and seeing. And especially then, I learned that it was unwise to cloister or sequester yourself in one perspective away from the other realities that may or may not conflict with the values of that one perspective. It continues to be really important to me not to deny that we live in deeply separated communities, segregated communities.
It's interesting. A minute ago, you talked about not cloistering yourself,
Yeah.
and I think you're one of the least cloistered people I've encountered, and I have some sense of how challenging that might be. That is, like, cloistering oneself as a form of protection. Uh, how do you know what to be open to?
It is about being instinctive, about being open to your own intuition, to my own intuition. When I'm working on my lines on a Shakespeare play, the key for me is to connect the thought that each moment, each phrase, or each insight is connected to a previous one and an oncoming one. And the key is finding those connecting points. Some folks have photographic memory, some folks have auditory memory, mixes of those things, and those are paths to the same destination. But for me, the most effective strategy is um, remembering that even the most isolated monologue or soliloquy is in fact deeply interconnected to other points throughout the play. And it's my task as an actor and an artist to find those connections, especially the ones, hopefully the ones that are least often found or looked for in other performances. And that, to me, is also a recipe for day-to-day life of when I'm in a difficult situation or I'm experiencing something really traumatic or hard or sad. It is a comfort to remember that this connects out of this isolated place. And that is what will help me survive whatever it is that I'm experiencing in that moment.
So you came from Street Roots to
Yeah.
talk this morning, and you're preparing A Winter's Tale.
Yeah.
Are there lines from A Winter's Tale that you feel connecting strongly to your work at Street Roots right now?
Oh yeah, that really puts me in a space, because I'll be frank, I'm nervous about this role. I'm playing Leontes, the king of Sicilia. Okay, so Leontes believes his wife to be unfaithful, and he unravels just on that suspicion, and he starts seeing all around him reasons to run with this assumption, even when his friends and his family are saying, "No, hold up, like take a second. Everything's fine. What are you doing?" And it's just one monologue in which he goes from thinking his best friend is his best friend to thinking his best friend and his wife are cheating on him, and it just starts with too hot, too hot. To mingle friendship far is mingling bloods. I have the tremor cordis on me. My heart dances, but not for joy, not joy. This entertainment may a free face put on, derived from liberty, from bounty, fertile bosom, and well become the agent. May, I grant, but to be paddling palms and pinching fingers as even now they are. This is entertainment my bosom likes not, nor my brows. He goes on.
Hmm. So that passage starts with too hot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're in stuff that's pretty hot.
Yeah.
Does it ever feel too hot?
Oh, yes. My office at Street Roots at 281 West Burnside, I'm on the street level. I have a big plate glass window that's like wall height window. So I'm literally right on Burnside. And I see the rapid response trucks. I see the maintenance and clean and safe. I see police and ambulance and fire. I see folks just trying to huddle away from the traffic and be somewhere where they're not going to be chased away. I have a neighbor who sleeps in one of our doorways who screams profanities all through the day. And when I ask him about it, he explains that he's getting the negativity out of himself. And yeah, it's incredibly hard to concentrate. It's deeply unpleasant. It's inconvenient. It's difficult to experience every day and know that we have no acceptable tools to help this person. And I would rather that he screams to get his negativity out than he do worse things. But you can't like put that in a data point and, create a program for that, right? Like we don't have the budget. We don't have the political will. We don't have the facilities. We don't have the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it is too hot. It's too much to ask of my staff or my volunteers or myself or, to just be okay with the city as it is, with this view of Burnside as it is right now. And I also have nostalgia and sadness. Like I'm right across the street from where X-Ray Cafe used to be. And, I remember when, not that things were better, it wasn't a golden age, but like there was a little bit more gentleness and a little less immediate hostility on a day-to-day basis, even just a few years ago. and to be sitting in my tiny office and experiencing that is like, it's a constant reminder of how far things have gone now. It's not a war-torn hellscape, but it is deeply sad.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a sense? This is an unfair question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of what would be needed to move back in the direction of more gentleness and kindness for this city, especially downtown and Old Town?
Yeah.
To feel more gentle and kind.
Yeah. I've thought a lot about this. I think with things like cynicism and cruelty or gentleness and kindness, what's required is a critical mass of people showing up with this as their first response, which is really, really hard to ask of us as individuals and to ask of us as communities, because we've seen what we've seen and we've experienced what we've experienced. So, of course, I have prejudice and judgment and poor regard for authoritarian law enforcement, and for myopic and amnesiac political leadership. And it's hard not to walk into a room and see those uniforms or see those faces, those familiar faces on the media, and not have those memories of those decisions that they made and those actions that they took days, weeks, months, years ago. And I see it in business owners, longtime business owners and neighbors in Old Town, Chinatown, what used to be Japantown, right? Skidmore area. You know, these are people who have experienced all of these changes. And of course, they're going to come with predetermined outcomes to neighborhood association meetings or to city hall or to elections. And I don't blame them for that. And if I'm true to my values, my solution to all of this is, can we please be gentler and kinder to one another right off the bat? I don't have a big policy initiative or, budgetary proposal. It's just, even this guy who screams every day, I have to remind myself to be gentle and kind with him first.
I have so many thoughts in my head right now. So I want to, first of all, thank you for that. Thinking about the fact that we're talking about some of the hardest parts of living in this city and really any city in this country today, and we're talking about Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
And your encouragement, and I think the example, the model you provide, which is to try to be better, to try to be kinder and gentler to each other. And so I've been thinking, as you've been talking about tragedy.
Yeah.
Because it feels to me like you have often good people or people trying to be good, and somehow the situation overwhelms their capacity to be good.
Yes.
What do you think tragedy is, and do you see some of that in our situation now?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I think that tragedy began with the Greeks, with a good faith attempt to atone and to, in real time, figure out how to get through an unbearable moral, political, social, communal experience. So it was ritual, but it was also literally the city coming together and saying, let's figure this out. And we're going to do it through poetry, through performance. We have all these other processes. We've tried all of the other processes. This is the one way left to us to figure out, and to use metaphor, to use poetic distance to actually achieve incredible intimacy with what it is that you're wrestling with and all the dimensions of it. So to me, what makes a great tragedy, what makes a text so universal and ubiquitous, is how an audience across time and space, this is now 4,000 years after the Greeks or 400 years after Shakespeare, an audience is able to experience what the performers are performing and connect it intimately with themselves. So it kind of doesn't matter what the details are. What matters is the emotional truth that is transcending those obstacles. So if it's Othello, or if it's Lear, or if it's Hamlet, or if it's Romeo and Juliet, or if it's Hermione or Portia, like, these figures carry with them some aspect of a skeleton key that can unlock something that any human being can relate to and say, oh my gosh, that's how it feels. That's what that looks like from the outside. I had no idea. That's how to navigate those conflicting loyalties or those conflicting passions. It's a way to do that. And the beauty of these things is that they're not dogmatic. They're not prescribing answers or strategies that cannot be deviated from. They're simply opening doors and showing later audiences, later communities, this is a way to navigate this.
I feel like what you just said, I started thinking again about your ways of being in the world. And I said ways, but I could have said way, even though it includes multiple forms. One of which is that you've written a book, which is coming out around now.
Yeah.
And the reason I think I'm thinking about that is because you've just suggested that there might be many ways to navigate the challenges that the world presents us with.
Yeah.
The book is called Character Work.
Yes.
So on top of all the other things you do,
yes,
you've been working on this book that's about to come out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to give huge thanks to Oregon Humanities over the years. It began as an essay I wrote about playing a man who we know as Qigong, a Chinese migrant laborer who was hanged for a crime he did not commit in 1889 and buried in a then unmarked grave at the Lone Fir Cemetery, a pioneer cemetery, a historic cemetery in Southeast Portland. I played him at a community event. I'm actually going to be playing him again this coming Halloween at the Tour of Untimely Departures. And I wrote about the experience of playing him, and that essay became the nucleus of this book. And then much of the rest of the book is about searching for lost graves of my family members in the Philippines and doing the work of the Idea Assistance Project and Portland Street Medicine and other theater work, touring in Iliad to prisons. So it's not a map for how to live a better life so much as it's a play-by-play of my best efforts at being in the world and maintaining some semblance of balance internally while everything else is unbalanced.
What makes an effort a good effort to maintain that balance? What is a best effort, and how do you know?
It's connection. It's connecting. It's knowing that I've achieved the same wavelength, vibe, if you will, with other folks, with other people, even when it was really hard to. Yeah, all the other metrics are compromised. I have to actually be detached from outcomes, which is really, really hard.
Will you say another word about that? What do you mean you have to be detached from outcomes?
I can't hang my personal self-worth on whether I've, quote unquote, helped someone get into housing. The infinite obstacles, the intricate obstacles that every individual faces, you can't design a program that is going to be universally applicable for every individual circumstance. When I was a shelter manager, I used to tell my staff, like, we can't be riding around on white horses pretending like we're the cavalry. Our job is to turn on the lights when we say we'll turn them on and turn them off when we say we're going to turn them off, and to keep the coffee pot brewing all day long. Everything else is for the individual to own their success, their failure, their tragedy, their glory, like their achievements. They need to define those things for themselves. And it's paternalism and white saviorism to pretend like we're essential to them in that way. Now, it's a noble intention to be essential in the world. it's a noble thing to try to create organizations to do this work from an organizational, strategic point of departure. But the granular experience of our reality, it becomes really objectifying really quickly if you carry that to the personal relationship level.
In a way, I feel like what you're doing is you're being deliberately modest. Maybe modest is the wrong word, realistic about your ambition for how to proceed in the world. That you have identified connection and maybe even the sense of connection, because you can never fully know what's going on the other side.
That's right.
You've been sending letters to a group of people. I don't know how big the group
That's
is or
right.
who it includes. I receive those letters. Often
Yeah.
those letters, first I want to say thank you.
Yeah.
Those letters often are chiefly about people you encounter in the kind of work you've been talking about.
Yes.
Why are you writing about them and sending those to this group of people, whoever the group may include?
Yeah. I'm writing those letters, number one, because writing letters is cheaper than therapy. um, and that it is a way of grounding, and I mean that in the sense of like electricity being grounded in the earth. As anyone who works as a social services professional or a nursing professional, medical professional knows, it is a huge amount. It's like working in a nuclear reactor, I imagine. You're irradiated with trauma and vicarious trauma or personal trauma. And you have to find ways of getting that energy out of the full container that it's inside of yourself. And I change names and I remove identifying information. And this might be a Catholic thing. Now I'm just thinking of that now from the beginning of our conversation. The confessional piece is deeply rooted in my psyche. Like, it's important for me to say what I've seen to someone and not just sit with this in a dark room, which is not to say that I'm disclosing any personal information. It's just that the emotional truth of seeing and witnessing and experiencing people that now I've known for, all my adult life. And I see them almost every day now. And I have personal relationships with them and I see them suffering, and I'm limited, I'm bounded in what I can do to help them. I'm not this person's father or doctor or therapist or anything. But I care about this person. And when I've tried all of the other things, at the end of the day, I can only write about them.
Can I ask how you think some of these folks see you? You just said, I'm not their father. I'm not.
Yeah.
What do they see you as?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think many do see me as an authority figure, as someone who has approved or denied care or case management or access to services in some way. And then now they see me in a new role, and they still carry some of those assumptions about me. Some people see me as the son of immigrants that I am, as someone who's taken somebody else's job and who doesn't deserve to be in what positions of power and privilege that I have. So I do experience that. Some people see me as a peer, as I've heard the phrasing in infinite permutations. If I had just done this, or if I had just done that, I would be in the job that you're in right now. I would be in your office right now. Or I used to be you at one point. I was the guy running the thing or driving the van or whatever I was doing. And now I'm here. So yeah.
You're listening to The Detour with Paul Susi. At Oregon Humanities, we create conditions for people to understand each other and be understood. through conversations in small rooms and large auditoriums, by sharing stories in our publications and on this podcast, and by offering resources through fellowships, grants, and training people to lead conversations. Story by story and conversation by conversation, Oregon Humanities helps people think through difficult topics and challenging questions together. Your financial support helps keep these statewide efforts free and accessible even in the midst of federal funding cuts, so that all our neighbors feel welcome, heard, seen, and valued. You could become a sustaining donor by giving $10 or $20 a month, or make a one-time gift that strengthens relationships and builds trust throughout our state. Visit OregonHumanities.org to donate now, or find us in the Willamette Week Give Guide through December 31st. You talked about your essay about Qigong and playing Qigong. You talked about something I know less of, which is your work finding graves in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And you talked about how Portland used to be.
Yeah.
Those are all memory work of some kind.
Yeah.
How much are your memories core to what you're doing tomorrow, and why?
Yeah. Well, memory, again, with the connection piece, memory is what allows me to give some scaffolding of what tomorrow can be. So I would not know where to begin if I did not have memory, what memory I have. Regardless of how tomorrow unfolds, memory becomes a comfort or a source of healing or strength when tomorrow goes sideways, and I have to regroup and reassess. So I do rely on memory a lot, but it's also really subjective. We're all storytellers to a degree, and I am creating a story out of my memories. And I am, carefully sculpting the facts to make myself feel better, or to make myself look a certain way in a certain light, when really I just, I really fell flat on my butt in that one interaction. And I would rather not remember that,
But to cross national borders to go look for
Yeah.
the sites of ancestors.
Yeah.
It takes a powerful commitment to go back and do that you have an idea about what's going on there.
Yeah. When I had the opportunity to travel to the Philippines in 2022, I had this grand adventure in my head of like, I'm going to look for, great-grandparents in the Philippines, and try to learn more about, who I'm connected to. But the actual narrative of that was that, number one, I'm only able to find the really immediate aunts and uncles and cousins and my half-brother's mother, and, just really, really close steps in the sort of infinite pyramid of ancestry. And number two, connection is subject to inflation. Like, when you have over 80 cousins, everybody's a cousin. And so everybody's family. So it's almost like nobody's family. Like, it's very dear and very sweet, but we're strangers. We love each other. We care about each other. They feed me and clothe me and, make me feel welcome. But we don't really have the opportunity to deepen those connections because I'm flying away in a week. And I live a life that is worlds away from the subsistence farming, the market stalls, the street food, what we would call abject poverty, what they call a comfortable enough life. So it's really hard to relate across those boundaries. I find a grave, I see the name, I take a picture, I, wipe away a little bit of rubbish, and then I kind of walk away, and it's a little anticlimactic. And it made me think about how we remember, like why and how we remember ourselves and our loved ones. Metro put a marker down in the last 2 years for where they think Qigong is. And then according to even like some records I found, that's in the wrong spot. So, and Qigong is an Americanization, an Ellis Islanding of his name. We don't know what his name actually was. This is just what was transcribed in the Oregonian in 1889. So what is it that we really remember? Who are we really remembering? And I think what we're really remembering is that we're trying to be better. We, the living, are trying to be better now than our ancestors were then. So it's really for us that these markers even exist. It's not for them. Even if that's what they wanted, it's not necessarily for them.
Do you have a sense of how you'd want to be remembered and by whom?
I think I don't want to be remembered. I want to be able to hand off to my successors in post a thing that is understandable and makes sense and is graspable and has clear boundaries. That, I think, is what I want my legacy to be in any of my things, is some version of that. Here is what I did. I did the best I could. You get to now make decisions.
Something I haven't asked you about yet that I've been wondering is actually some of the work you've done with Oregon Humanities over the years, and that's conversation work around the state.
Yeah.
Related closely to the work you've been describing at Street Roots and other organizations. You've led a lot of conversations and even a cohort of people leading conversations around housing and belonging.
Mm-hmm.
How's that work looking to you now? What does it feel like to you?
Yeah, I started doing that in 2020, and I love it. And one thing that I've seen change in the 5 years is that I have this sort of the same scaffolding of questions. And I ask the question, what does home mean to you? Or what do you think of when you think of home? And at the beginning, in 2020, home connected directly to safety. People immediately went to, this is where I feel safe. So my next question naturally became, what do we mean by safe? How do we know when we're safe? What does that look like in your body? How can I tell just by looking at you that you are safe? And then that would emerge into, I know when someone else does or does not belong. The answers around safety would generate the belonging piece. And then the final question in those early years was, well, how do you know when you belong? What does that look like? So those were really rich conversations. I've noticed in recent years that it's much more likely that people let go of safety entirely. They have accepted either explicitly or implicitly that there is no safety. There is no safe. We spend a lot more time now about belonging, around belonging. Who belongs in this community? How do I know that they belong here? And it's less about housing now. I mean, housing is the challenge that is confronting Oregon as a whole. And in some ways, housing is just window dressing for a deeper conflict about we don't know who belongs and why they belong in the state.
I mean, to ask you a version of the question you asked, like, where do you feel or when do you feel like you belong? How do you know?
Yeah, it is an elusive feeling. It is transient. It is specific to moments. It's acting. I feel the most explicit belonging when I'm performing an Iliad in a prison. And there's a line or there's a moment where there's a breath in the room, a collective breath, and everyone has forgotten for 5 seconds that they are incarcerated or that they are corrections officers or that they are visitors to a prison. and we're considering a phrase or an image together with fresh senses. That is the moment when I feel the most kinship with humanity.
It's kind of amazing that you feel the most kinship when you're reciting words that were written by someone else in a place where you will not lie down to sleep that night.
That's right. Yeah. 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 And I think it's because, well, Hamlet says all Denmark is a prison. The whole world is a prison. We're all imprisoned right now. We're imprisoned by our circumstances. We feel that imprisonment. And so liberation, the joyfulness of liberation, the aspiration of liberation is a universal aspiration. So I think that translates to really granular, specific experiences of like wanting to bust out of this, I want to get free of this, whether it's your home life or your city or the politics or, like social media, like the routines that constrain us, and the obligations, the debt, right? Like all of that feels really palpable at all times, I think.
This is the second time I'm going to ask this.
Yeah.
And this is about lines from the Iliad.
Yeah.
Do you feel that collective intake of breath? Is there a passage that you would be willing to sort of share
God.
here?
Oh, a play I have not visited in a year. Well, there is a line from the Iliad that is not in the play, but I wish that it was. I really wish that it was. It's Ajax's prayer to Zeus. At that moment, what is happening is that the Trojans are somehow winning, and it looks like the Greek ships are about to be burned, and that no one has told Achilles that his best and dearly beloved friend has died. And Ajax, who is the biggest, dumbest warrior in the Greek army, who I really love Ajax, actually. He kind of stops in the middle of the battle, and he says some version of, there are many translations, some version of the following lines. He says, I don't think anyone has told him that his friend has died. We must send someone to tell him. Clearly, Father Zeus wills it that we suffer today. But take away this darkness, this mist covering the Greek eyes. Destroy us if you must, Father Zeus, but destroy us in the light. Something about that like acceptance of the impossible that I would rather know, I would rather see it and know it than be destroyed in darkness, is really, really powerful to me.
It's a hell of a prayer. And you have an unbelievable capacity to go to what you just described as the dark or the suffering. And it seems to me you are, like it or not, you are pushing us to at least recognize where we are or are not stepping forward towards suffering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you comfortable sort of saying, yes, damn it, that's what I'm doing? Like, is that something you are deliberately doing?
I'm not trying to inflict suffering, but insofar as suffering is inevitable, I am trying to, I guess, encourage myself first, but also others around me, if able. I'm encouraging us to see it for what it is, and to the better to be able to survive it and overcome it, so that at worst we encounter it with dignity, with self-regard and self-respect instead of deceiving ourselves, if that's what we're choosing to do.
Going to go back to street roots for a second.
Yeah.
You're fairly early in this particular job.
Mm-hmm.
You have a question that's sort of rising regularly for you in that job as you're in it now?
I've always been a fan of Street Roots. It's a wonderful newspaper. Some of the best reporting, right, on the coast, on the West Coast. And the question that comes up for me the longer I'm there is, how come we're the only ones doing this? Like, we used to have, I don't know. I don't know enough about the media landscape, but obviously we've been decimated, right? Like there's very few print publications anymore, and I'm a little bit shocked because as there's fewer and fewer, there's also what seems to me so much more focus and such better writing, such better journalism now, and in these pockets that are beleaguered and shrinking. And yeah, I don't know why that is, how those who have survived and gotten so good. And this is a really scary time. Like, I don't know whether to put up posters saying ICE isn't welcome, or to like put up posters saying we're a newspaper, or posters will just make us more of a target no matter what we put up. Street Roots is unique because we're first and foremost, we are a newspaper, but we're also service provider adjacent. We have a vendor office that serves, at any given time, there's probably about 300 or 400 active vendors. The vendor office is a space where people can charge their phones and have a cup of coffee and get some survival supplies and hygiene supplies and take showers and do laundry. And there are writing workshops. We're right on 3rd and Burnside. Everybody, it doesn't matter if you're a vendor or not, everybody keeps trying to come into the building. And that just underscores the need. And we have such robust neighbors all around us, and yet there's still more and more need than these organizations are able to sustain. But again, this goes back to how in the last few years, it seems that the first response of everybody, whether you're on the streets or you're a service provider or you're a donor or you're a community member or a police officer, your first response is no longer the kindness or the gentleness that I remember from 10 or 15 years ago. Now the first response is, what are you trying to get away with? What is it that you're taking advantage of? What's your game here? You clearly have something figured out, whether you're feigning illness or you're feigning suffering, or you're claiming that you are disabled, or you're claiming that this is your emotional support dog, or whatever it is. Like you're clearly trying to get away with something. What are you trying to get away with?
You have felt that shift over the years.
Yeah. And I feel it in myself too. The cynicism is easy to because we have active memory, because I've known this person for 20 years. So I've seen this person's trajectory from my perspective. So I'm assuming that, oh, you're still here. You're still here. We've gotten you into this program or that program however many times, and now you're here again. What is going on? I don't have all the answers, but I have that specific perspective of this person. So I'm immediately jumping to that assumption. What are you trying to get away with?
So what do you do with the feeling you're still here? How do you do your work wholly while having that feeling?
Yeah. I have to slow down. I have to take my time. I have to remind myself to slow down and take my time, that I don't know. While I may have known this person for 20 years, I have not seen them every single day of those 20 years. And it may be that within those 20 years, that person achieved sobriety, housing, family reunification, employment, a clean bill of health. And then something else happened. And then something else happened. And then something else happened. And now here he is. I don't get to know that. I'm not privy to that information. And I have to remind myself that even though I know his tics and his mannerisms and the language that he uses, and even when I feel how hurt I am by the language that he uses towards me, I still have to treat him as though he's at the beginning of that 20-year journey, that maybe this is act 3 in the play, and he's going to have an amazing act 5. I don't get to know that act 5. I'm just here for act 3.
It's actually really beautifully said, and it feels really helpful. I'm going to ask a third and final time about lines that stay in your head from wherever. It could be Shakespeare, it could be the Iliad. You just pointed back to understanding this incredibly powerful and demanding work with an analogy to theater. And so I want to ask you, any lines that are prominent in your head recently, or that with the invitation you'd want to summon and share?
Well, when I say yes to theater projects, I always say yes with the hope that the next thing I do is going to be the reason why I'm here. I am, of all my work, I am proudest of an Iliad. Like, that is the thing that if I die tomorrow, I'd be like, I'm cool. Everything's fine. It did the things. Checked all the boxes. But yeah, working on Winter's Tale right now, in this moment in time, it's not a line actually that is sticking with me. It's a moment in the play that we are working on. The king holds a trial, and the crux of the trial is that there's an oracle from Apollo that is going to say the verdict. Like, the king is accusing his wife of treason and adultery. Sentence is going to be death. But to observe due process, the king says, I'm going to let the oracle from Apollo tell me what to do. And so they open the oracle, and it's really clear. The oracle says, Hermione is chaste, Polixenes is blameless, Camilla was a true and honest servant, Leontes, the king, is a jealous tyrant, explicitly says it out loud, and the king will live without an heir until that which is lost is found. It's a mic drop moment. Everybody stops and looks at the king, and the king chooses to say, in that moment, there's no truth in the oracle. The trial will continue. And like, as soon as he says that, a messenger runs in and says, your only son has just died. And then Hermione collapses and more things happen. Hermione's carried off stage. He has a moment of remorse. He's like, I was crazy. The god is angry. I need to now publicly say, the god's right. I was wrong. I did that. I did all the things that Apollo just told me that I did. And Paulina comes back on stage, and she very elaborately, beautifully, powerfully indicts the king. All these things have now happened. Your son has died. You left your baby daughter on a beach. Your wife has now just died. The sweetest woman ever. Your wife has now just died. And by the way, you did all of these other awful things. And he has to stand there and take that, knowing that he did it, knowing that he committed these crimes. And the magic of the play is that you're telescoping the process into one moment in time where he comes to all that recognition instantaneously. That instant recognition is what I'm obsessed with right now. How do you traverse that territory in moments? Going from being so convinced in your awfulness to seeing your awfulness for what it is, instantaneously, in the space of some speeches.
Yeah. It feels to me like you've talked a lot about the importance of seeing clearly.
Yes.
Both seeing our situation clearly and seeing ourselves in it clearly. I think your example and your words also push us to, and then what? What do you do on the basis of that seeing? We're moving toward a close here. I will tell you that choice of moment made me think of something from one of the books that shows up in some of your upbringing, and that is in 2 Samuel.
Yeah.
And I think it's chapter 12. After David doesn't go out to war when he's supposed to go out to war, and then he stays back and he takes Bathsheba, impregnates her, then has her husband Uriah come home from the front where the fighting is tough, tries to get him to go home. He won't because he's loyal to his fellows. So then David sends him out with Joab to be killed in war. But David doesn't know he's doing any wrong. He's just trying to do it. But what follows is that Nathan shows up and tells David a story about a poor man, a rich man, and a ewe. And David hears that story, and somehow in that moment, he sees himself.
Yeah. The power of story to be a mirror when you're not ready to see yourself, but story can open that mirror for you. Yeah. I mean, my heart dances, but not for joy was a direct allusion to the Book of Common Prayer and to, I'm not sure which biblical verse, but it is another connector to that.
I want to leave it because you said connector again, and I feel like so much of who you are and how you help us see how to be in the world is around connection. Paul, I want to say a huge thank you for who you are in the world, for taking time to share it with us and in lots of different ways. So just thank you.
Thank you so much, Adam. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Paul Susi is a writer, educator, social services professional, and theater artist living in Portland. Paul shares about all of these experiences and more in his debut book, Character Work. Paul is a conversation project facilitator with us at Oregon Humanities, and he's the director of the vendor program at Street Roots. You can see Paul perform as King Leontes in The Winter's Tale at Artist Repertory Theater later this year, and learn more about him in our show notes at OregonHumanities.org. Thanks for listening to The Detour from Oregon Humanities. Anna McLean is our producer, and Alexandra Sylvester, Karina Brisky, and Ben Waterhouse are assistant producers. This is Adam Davis. See you next time.